Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of To The Point with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha television. I have a very special guest with me on the program today. He's been the former foreign secretary to the country and also one of the foremost experts when it comes to China, Ambassador Shyam. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for being a part of the program today. We have you at the most opportune moment and at the right time. Just a day ago, it was an international tribunal which ruled on the sovereignty of China and the South China Sea. Why don't you explain the ruling itself for us, and then we'll take it from there.
The ruling is with respect to several complaints or charges which were made by the Philippines against China. And these related to 3 or 4 very specific elements. One was the sovereignty that China claims over the entire South China Sea through what is known as the 9 dotted line. Which was declared vaguely on a map in 1948 by the Republic of China government, the Kuomintang government, but which China has, in a sense, inherited. The other was with respect to the islands in the South China Sea and the activities of China with respect to those islands, which also the Philippines and some of the other countries claim. And the third element related to the construction activities that China has been engaged in over several of these islands, including those which are just reefs or, where the land appears only at low tide, and which have been made, virtually like bases now over the last couple of years. So these were 3 key elements. So with respect to the sovereignty over the whole of the South China Sea, which would be almost 85 to 90% of the sea, what the tribunal has said is that according to the law of the sea, to which China is a signatory, any jurisdiction over ocean space derives only from jurisdiction over land space. That means you can have territorial sea from the coast, you can have exclusive economic zone, again as an extension from the coast. You can have continental shelf, also extending from the land feature. Yes. And it had been agreed that earlier claims that countries may have had, that is parties to the law of the sea, may have had to say historic waters, or that traditionally they had control over certain ocean spaces. Those were voluntarily given up by the signatories to the convention. Therefore, China cannot claim the whole of the ocean space, which is the South China Sea, as historic waters, because according to the law of the sea, that is no longer relevant. So this was categorically rejected by the tribunal, and that's a very important judgment. Second, we come to the status of the islands. And there, the importance of the ruling is that you cannot claim any territorial sea or exclusive economic zone on the basis of islands which are either not inhabited, cannot support human life, or which, as I said, when it is low tide, it appears, and when it is high tide, it disappears. What China has done by, creating new islands, the tribunal award very clearly says that you cannot claim any kind of jurisdiction over the adjacent waters unless the condition that it is a proper island, it is inhabited, can support life. If that is not the case, you cannot really claim that. So this is also a rejection in a sense of, whatever China has been doing on these islands, saying that whatever activity, human activity, has changed the character of the original island cannot now be a justification for claiming ocean space. Very important, again, judgment. Yes. And the third is a very serious indictment of the conduct of China, saying that you have violated the convention by actually endangering, through your activities of your coast guard or your vessels, by trying to prevent, say, the Philippines naval vessels or fishing vessels from fishing in areas which were traditionally their fishing grounds. So this is really charging them with endangering peace and security. Yes. So even if China says we reject this award, you know, the public relations impact, the political impact of this is very serious, you know, particularly for a country which is a permanent member of the Security Council, which has said in so many words that it upholds the existing international order, that it upholds international law. It cannot pick and choose what it upholds and what it does not.
Which brings me to my next question, Ambassador. What short-term impact or long-term impact do you see that this ruling might have on China and some of the other smaller countries in the region who get impacted by what's happening in the South China Sea?
Well, immediately there is a change in what I would say the psychological balance, you know, because China has been riding high over the last many years. It has been you know, sort of expanding its power and its position in the South China Sea and even globally. This is a kind of a setback to that. So in the relationship that China has with the smaller countries in the region, say the ASEAN countries, you know, the kind of an aura of invincibility which China seemed to have, you know, tried to build up, that has taken a knock, because they have, in a sense, they have been called for whatever they have done. So this has, in a sense, you know, it could embolden some of the other countries in the region, which so far have been, in a sense, rather fearful of China. So that fear element will diminish. The same could be said about the relationship, say, with Japan or, you know, the United States of America itself. It brings about a certain change in the balance. So it's not, in that sense, it is, as I said, a setback for China. Now, China can react in two ways. It can react to this not only rejecting the award, but trying to show on the ground that award like this will not in any way act as a constraint on its activities there. So intensify some of the construction activity, put more weapons or, you know, military installations on the...
Indeed, you know, that was one of the biggest fears. That was one of the biggest fears, that China is going to be militarily more aggressive in the region.
So that could be a possibility. Some people are saying that they may even react by declaring, say, a air defense information zone over the South China Sea, as they did in the northern part. Exactly. So they might react by doing these kind of things. But my sense is that if they do this, they will only, in a sense, worsen the situation for themselves, because this will undermine what they have been trying to also project over the last several years, that they are a responsible power, that, you know, as a permanent member of the Security Council, they, as I said, they uphold the international order, they, you know, comply with international norms and international law. All that will lose credibility in a sense. They are soon going to be hosting the G20 meeting.
Yes.
Now, if you're going to be hosting the G20 meeting and the backdrop to this is this kind of very, in a sense, a very angry response to the award in the region, it will undermine, you know, whatever they hope to gain through being an important host for the first time of the G20, which after all is a gathering of the most important countries in the world. Indeed. We would hope that they don't go in that direction. Not only because it would create tensions for other countries, but also it would seem to undermine China's own long-term interests.
Do you see any escalation? Do you see, you know, this issue being escalated to an extent where, you know, we've seen in the past how Russia has been isolated because of what's happening in Crimea, a similar kind of situation happening with China?
I doubt whether something like that could happen, for the simple reason that the countries which could impose those kind of sanctions, they are actually joined at the hip with China as far as the economy is concerned, as far as trade is concerned, investment is concerned. So there is much more at stake in that sense than has been the case with Russia. So I do not expect that the United States of America will take the lead in getting, a large number of countries to impose sanctions on China if it does not comply with the award. But I do certainly see that there will be greater pressures on China to restrain its activities, to behave more responsibly in the South China Sea. And I see that, the Chinese have kept maybe perhaps some escape route for themselves by saying that, they have always been ready for a dialogue, with the countries in the region. Even the new Philippines government has said, yes, there is the award, but, we are willing to sit across the table with China. China will probably grab that.
So do you think that China has left itself that much of scope to negotiate? Because there has been massive rhetoric and back in China.
Not so much negotiate, but, to calm the situation down. Because I doubt whether China will ever acknowledge that, it is giving up some of its territorial claims. That is not likely. So the rhetoric of strongly, pressing their claims may continue, even while they engage, for example, in bilateral talks with the Philippines to, say, joint development or, Scarborough Shoal, let us have some joint fishing, there, or, be much more serious in the ongoing dialogue on the code of conduct with ASEAN, which they had agreed to, but there has been very little progress in that. So it is possible that there would be more progress in that. I could see, for example, there could be some progress in confidence building measures. So how do you avoid serious incidents at sea? Some kind of a code of conduct with respect to encounters at sea. All those kind of things, without China actually adjusting its claims, could serve the purpose of at least reducing the temperature in the region, and China, in a sense, stepping back for a time and wait until maybe the situation is more propitious, or if it doesn't happen, okay, we'll see.
There are at least 8 countries vying for space, in the South China Sea. After this particular ruling, do you think that some of the other countries who are, trying to establish themselves in the South China Sea be emboldened and try and take some steps against China? Say, for instance, Vietnam or some of the other countries.
No, I don't see countries like Vietnam or, say, Indonesia or others taking steps against China. But as I said, the fear element that has, in a sense, inhibited many of the smaller countries in the region, that fear element has diminished considerably as a result of this ruling. Because this is the first time, actually, that an international body and a legally constituted international body has, in fact, so seriously indicted a major power.
Indeed.
So this, in a sense, dispels some of the fear element amongst the smaller ASEAN countries. In any case, these countries over the last several years have been engaged in a rather serious effort to build up their own military capabilities and naval capabilities, precisely because of the sense of threat from China. The relations between these countries and the United States, for example, has strengthened. The security understanding with a country like Japan, for example, has been upgraded. India too has, become has a higher profile in the region than before, and we have security arrangements, as you know, with several countries in the region. The Malabar exercises, for example, is a very clear example of India increasing its presence and profile in the region. So I would imagine that with respect to these kind of activities of both the regional countries as well as the extra-regional countries, I would imagine that the countervailing kind of activity which we have been seeing, that is likely to continue.
Indeed, now talking about India too reacted to what happened and what the tribunal said, and India said that all expected parties should sit down and deal with this in a calm manner. Now, talking about India and China, do you think that India's policy now towards China is going to change? Is there going to be any kind of a difference?
No, I don't think there is going to be a difference. But I think, again, India has been put in a stronger position politically because its own record compared to China has been actually quite exemplary. Because, as you know, in the dispute that we had with Bangladesh on the maritime issue, we accepted the UNCLOS arbitration award, and we did not contest that. So, in a sense, India's record stands in very sharp contrast to what China has done. So, to that extent, the status and standing of India, international standing of India goes up. Because if India wishes to be also seen as a responsible power, as a country which upholds international law, is a signatory to the UNCLOS, and it is not doing ifs and buts with respect to the norms of the UNCLOS. I think it puts us in a better light, projects us in a better light. Will it change anything on the ground? I doubt it very much. I mean, that is something which unless we build up our own strength, unless we make certain that both in terms of our economic strength, and in terms of our security capabilities, we do become a credible power. And other countries see us as a credible power. It is merely this award is not going to make a very big difference, substantial.
Do you believe that, what's happening in the East China Sea between North Korea and China and South Korea, as well as China, in the midst of everything, and the US also trying to take an active part in the region? China is clearly miffed with what the US is doing there in the region. They're opposed to the THAAD, missile system being put up in South Korea. They do not want that to happen. Will that have any kind of bearing in what's going to happen in the South China Sea?
Well, not directly, but it is part and parcel of what we see happening in the entire region. The United States of America continues to be a very formidable military presence in the region. What China has been objecting to is the fact that there are, sort of forward deployments by the United States in the region, very close to China's coast. Because, the United States of America does not even recognize the 12-mile territorial limit, only 3 miles. And it has been carrying out, reconnaissance activities and military deployments very close to China's shore, which the Chinese tolerated in the past, but now they consider themselves to be a major power in their own right, and therefore consider this to be, the United States of America impinging on their interests. Now, this is not only true with respect to the South China Sea, it is with respect to, the northern part also, because both South Korea and Japan are very major allies of the United States. So it is not a different situation with respect to the South China Sea and the northern part. But I think with respect to the northern part, perhaps there is greater possibility of some kind of an untoward incident because of North Korea, because it is an unpredictable country, and you may have China and the United States or China and Japan involved in some kind of a standoff, not because of what they are doing to each other, but because of what happens with North Korea and the threat perception which Japan has or South Korea has with respect to North Korea. So that element is something that we have to watch.
So you foresee something drastic happening in that particular region?
No, I do not foresee. I'm just saying that it is possible. This is the unpredictable element. This is in a sense the something that we cannot really be certain about, because of the nature of the North Korean state.
And coming back now to the South China Sea, Ambassador, do you think that the status quo is going to remain? Each of the parties are going to just continue doing what it is that they were doing before the verdict right now?
Well, no, because if China, as I mentioned, continues to do what it has been, meaning thereby that it continues to do further construction activities on some of these islands, or puts more weapons on these islands, That would be, in a sense, a continuation of what they have been doing, but that would, further worsen the situation.
But who's going to stop China in the South China Sea?
Well, as you know, the award is binding, but it cannot be enforced by the convention itself. Therefore, one can only hope that China itself will see its own interest in not escalating the situation. Because after all, it is a major economic actor in the region. It has very important economic interests, trade interests. It is also a globalized economy. It has very close relations, as I mentioned, investment relations, trade relations with the United States of America, also with Japan. So, in a sense, even though there may be security issues with these countries, at the same time, very vital economic interests of China are involved in these relationships. So, if China were to behave rationally, why would it want to seriously, impair these relations or have a threat to these relations because of what it may be doing? The status quo, in a sense, is in China's favor. Even if China does nothing after this, the fact is that China's dominant position today is, from its point of view, a big improvement from what it was before.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, status quo, in a sense, is not necessarily a bad thing for China. It is only if China wants to be much more ambitious and wants to, assert its domination in the region that you may have problems.
But recent history has shown us that China has been extremely ambitious and is looking.
Yes, but China is ambitious, but I think China, at the end of the day, is also a cautious country. I think the record will show that it has been rather prudent in terms of taking risks. So it took advantage of the fact that the United States was preoccupied with the Middle East. It was preoccupied with its own internal security situation because of terrorism, and therefore, in a sense, it took its eyes off the ball in the East, which gave China the opportunity to advance its both its economic as well as security profile in the region. But if it sees that there is a blowback and there is as I mentioned, a strong countervailing kind of movement to its ambitions, maybe it might trim its sails in a sense and wait for a more propitious time in the future. And I'm not saying that it would stop being ambitious, but maybe in terms of realizing those ambitions, it would be ready to step back for the time being.
Step back for the time being, but we do not know what's going to happen in the future. We come to the end of the program, Ambassador. Final comments from you, so before we end the program.
Well, as I said, this does represent a setback for China. I think the Indian official reaction has been rather cautious. We have repeated our stand that we should uphold international law, that it is important to respect the institutions which have been set up for upholding international law. So there is a implicit, criticism of China's reaction. But at the same time, we have also said that whatever disputes there may be, whatever issues in contention there would be, this should be resolved through peaceful and friendly negotiations. Now, that is something which I think China, in its own interest, will probably in the coming days will probably move in that direction, even though the rhetoric may be different. And as far as India-China relations is concerned, I think it is a complex relationship. It is a relationship in which there are elements of convergence, where we work together on issues. There is now a stronger economic interest between China and India. There is some cross-investment taking place. Trade is expanding. This is of benefit to both countries. India is participating in the AIIB, also in the BRICS Development Bank. Yes. We are now also members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So there are several areas where India and China can and should work together without neglecting the fact that there are issues, serious issues on which we are not on the same page. You know, for example, the NSG membership, there has been a difference of opinion, as there is on the issue of, say, the border itself.
Yes.
And China's relationship with Pakistan, which is directed against India. There are those differences of opinion. But I think on balance, keeping both elements in a sense, in some kind of a equilibrium is what we should be hoping to achieve. And in that respect, the summit meetings that our leaders have been having on numerous occasions, not only bilateral summits, but summits which take place on the sidelines of various regional meetings or international meetings, they have played a very important role, I believe, in keeping the relationship on an even keel. And I hope that will continue.
Yes, we hope that continues, and we hope that in the near future the relationship between India and China improves as well. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching. See you again.